What's up, scholars? Welcome back to another video. Today we are doing part 2 of Whole Cake Island. I have decided after reading through this arc that it is going to be split up into 3 parts because there's just way too much to talk about. I can't do it all in just 2 parts. So this video is going to be covering from 850, I think it's 852 or 853 through 881. That's this section. I will do the last section of chapters next week, part 3. But Oda's got me crying over things that I didn't think I would cry for. He has me questioning characters that I didn't want to question, and I'm mad about it. I am actually mad that he's making these characters that I thought were just really just one-tone characters. I'm not talking about Pudding. That's a whole. She's in her own little section. I'm questioning her now too. But I'm talking about the Vinsmokes. I am so angry that they're getting more depth to them. I still don't like them at all. But I'm mad that Oda has put things in this section of chapters, and I'm like, they're not just ruthless people who have no soul. Okay. Because that makes what they've done to Sanji just even worse. However, I didn't cry as much in this section of chapters as I did in the first batch of chapters. I still cried. I said it in my read with me, but just literally every time Sanji is on screen now, it just gets a visceral reaction from me. I just get emotional, just automatically. And some of the things he says, some of the things he does, I just can't help it. I get emotional over Sanji. It's fine. We're fine. We all know this by now. Y'all know this by now. It's fine. But I do want to address something that y'all talked about a lot in my other video, which is the Nami situation, because y'all did not really like that I was upset with Nami with her reaction to Sanji. Yes, I get it. I get that it was a very emotional scene for all of them. Nami was stressed out and she was so worried about Luffy because her and Luffy were both exhausted. They'd been fighting. She was worried about Luffy and she was sitting here. She didn't know everything that was going on with Sanji like we the readers do. She didn't know what was going on. All she saw was him fighting Luffy when Luffy wasn't fighting back, and he didn't explain himself, especially the sharp contrast of Zoe, him saying that he's going to come back, to now he's saying for them to get lost. I get it. I get that it was very confusing, emotions run high, and she is a very picky person when it comes to trusting others, when it comes to defending the people she cares about. So when she sees 2 people that she has put her trust in, 2 people that she cares about, and they're fighting one another, and it seems very one-sided, and she's not allowed to interfere, and she just doesn't understand the situation. I get why she would react the way that she did. It doesn't necessarily mean I still think it was right, but I do understand why she would react that way. Everybody reacts to things in a different manner. And Nami being someone who doesn't trust as easily and takes her and puts so much faith in the ones she does decide to trust, the fact that she was thinking Sanji was potentially breaking that trust, especially with that one panel of him glaring at her, and she'd never seen him do that before. So that one stark difference really made her doubt Sanji and doubt her trust in him. So I'm not angry at Nami or anything. I'm not angry at her. I was upset. Yes, I'm like, that still just doesn't like completely sit well with me. It still doesn't. But I wasn't like angry at her or just like think it was so out of character or anything. Like, I get it, but also it was like I knew that Luffy knew. And because Nami was right there beside him, I had expected her to at least grasp the situation a little bit, but she didn't. And that's okay. Because as we're reading she's doing great. She's actually popping off in this arc, and I'm really enjoying it. So I didn't want to just say that bit about Nami. I guess y'all being protective over Nami. I'd be the same way about Sanji. So like I totally get it. Y'all are fine. But yes, I just wanted to address that. I'm not angry with her, but I also just, that's my opinion on the whole situation. So that's not gonna change either. So I get what y'all are saying. I get where she's coming from. We Gucci across the board. We're good. We're going. So with that out of the way, we're gonna go ahead and get into this review. So we're starting with Luffy being free and chasing, like kind of chasing after Sanji. He's trying to find Sanji. You have Brook being captured by Big Mom, and he completely fools Big Mom by leading her to believe that he didn't have the copies of the cloning glyphs. And as soon as they were talking about it, saying like, oh well, it wasn't in his clothes, it wasn't on his person, he didn't have anything, I was like, I bet you anything he stored it in his head like he did the little snail, the what is it called, the little music thingy that he had recorded his cruise song on. I can't remember. But I was like, I bet you he's hiding it in there, and they're not gonna think his skull cracks open, so they're not gonna check that. I was right. I was right. It made me feel good to know I was right. But yes, so Brook is with Big Mom. Luffy is searching after Sanji, and Reiju actually finds Luffy and brings him away from all the people chasing him and explains that Sanji does know about the situation. He found out what Big Mom and Pudding's plans were. I love Luffy's response to this, because as soon as Reiju tells him that Sanji wanted to leave, but there are hostages from the restaurant he used to work at that he's not willing to abandon, so he's gonna stay. And Luffy's like, hostages? In the East Blue, I know them. And he's like, well, I know that at least I know Sanji's aware of what Pudding's up to. And then he smiles and he says, as long as he's not being tricked, I've done everything else I can. And then he leaves saying, I've made a promise to meet him, but not here. I love Luffy's just understanding of his crewmates, of his people. You get Nami reuniting with Chopper and Carrot in them in a very unconventional way, because they're chasing after them and Nami and Jinbei think they're enemies, and Nami attacks them on accident. They meet back up as they're running around, and they try to start figuring out where Sanji and Luffy are. They're trying to figure out how to get in contact with them because they can't find them in the mirror worlds. And then Nami remembers the mirror that Luffy did have when they were out by the boulder and the tree that Luffy had promised to meet Sanji at. And then we get this wonderful talk with Big Mom and Pudding, with Brook just sitting right there. So Brook discovers everything that is going on and the plan that they're hatching. Pudding just basically lays it out on the line. Her and Big Mom say like their entire plan of when they're planning to like kill Sanji and the rest of the Vent Smokes, like what the signal is to go for that, everything. Which for Pudding, it's this big moment where Sanji's gonna see her third eye. She doesn't know that he's already seen it, but Sanji's gonna see her third eye freeze and freak out, and that's when she's gonna go after him. And as that's going on, we also have what's his name? Opera, one of Big Mom's children or associates or something, realizing that Luffy and Nami have escaped and Jinbei has betrayed him, but he doesn't want to tell Big Mom, because if he tells her, then he's going to be blamed and he's going to end up being the one getting hurt. So he lies to all of them, saying that everything's fine, which actually plays in our favor. So it's like, good for you. But yes, he lies to Big Mom about that. Sanji is sitting with the food that he had prepared for Pudding, and he looks at it and realizes he cooked everybody's favorite foods. All of his crew's favorite foods. And I love that Sanji comes to like this realization, like this short realization as he's sitting there thinking, because he's saying, I've had a short but rich life. Luffy and the gang can escape on their own. The evil army of Vent Smokes will die, me included. All according to Big Mom's plan. This is the best way to avoid her wrath. But then as soon as someone comes along and tries to eat the food that he had prepared with his crew in mind, it's like he snaps out of this trance that he's been in since this whole debacle started, and he's like, no, I have to get this to Luffy because Luffy said he wouldn't move, and Sanji knows his captain. He knows Luffy is going to be there. So what does he do? He gets out in the rain, which is a very sad mirror to when he went to go see his mother in the rain and he had dropped his food and went to her and she had said it was delicious. And she praised him for his good cooking back then. And now we have Sanji running through the rain, dropping his food, and going to find Luffy. But before I talk about that, I just have to say Brook is the absolute MVP. He is just going off in this arc. Absolute MVP. He was snuggled up with Big Mom because Big Mom treats him like a little doll. Nami and Chopper, they find him and they end up freeing him after several attempts and almost dying. They free him, get him back, and he reveals that he has all of the poneglyphs, that he had copied all 3 of them and took out everybody in there in plenty of time before Big Mom even came in there. And I love how everybody is just like so shocked. They're like, wait, you did all of this? You got all the copies and you took on all these people and you were able to trick Big Mom? And Brook is just like, oh, yes, I did. I love that. Brook is so clutch in this arc. He is really getting his time to shine, and I am absolutely loving it. I really, really, really love Brook in this arc. He is just fantastic. But then we do get Sanji meeting up with Luffy. And Luffy is waiting out in the rain, almost passed out from being so hungry and so tired from all the fighting that he's done. And he's still out there waiting. But Luffy wakes up and Sanji gives him the food, and in such a mirror to his mother, Luffy starts eating it and tells Sanji it's delicious, that it tastes amazing. And Sanji's sitting there listening to Luffy gush over his food. And Luffy is fully doing this. One, I think is like 2 things. Like, one, I think Luffy was so hungry that anything was gonna taste good to him. Any food was gonna be good. And it was the food that he had told Sanji, the only food that he would eat was his. So of course he's going to be heaping praises on Sanji as soon as he eats his food. And I think that's the other part of it, is just Luffy was just, he wanted to emphasize so much how much he appreciated and treasured and loved Sanji's food, what Sanji does for him, for his crew. And Sanji's sitting there listening to this, and he says, liar. And he says liar because he knows that food does not taste good. And I bet anything Sanji is thinking of his mom when he went to her as a child. And now he's going to Luffy as an adult, not as a parental figure, but as somebody who loves and appreciates Sanji and what he does, and Sanji's food, Sanji's goals and aspirations. Because that's who his mom was as well. His mother was somebody who appreciated and loved Sanji for who he was, not who he was supposed to be. And that's exactly what Luffy loves Sanji for who he is, not what he's supposed to be, not who his family thinks he should be. And it hits really, really hard to see that small interaction just speaks volumes between them and just shows how deep that bond between them is. And then Sanji lays out his 3 reasons of why he tells Luffy he can't come back. I love of all 3 of these reasons, the first one that he lists is how he attacked Luffy. because he knew it wasn't right. He knew he had made a mistake doing that, but it was his only choice at the time. And he says, "The captain of my own ship came all this way to track me down, only for me to insult and hurt him to the best of my ability, despite no resistance from him whatsoever. That means I cannot go back to your ship now." As much as Sanji absolutely knows Luffy and Luffy's character as he does the rest of the Straw Hats, he still, it's like he has blinders on when it comes to himself and how the rest of the crew view him. Because he thinks if he's done something like this, there's no way that they can accept him back. There's no way that they need him back if he's going to act like that. If he willingly did that, then he cannot have a place on that crew anymore. And he was internally fully prepared to accept that fact whenever he did fight Luffy, which hurts even more. Sanji still underestimates how valued he is, how loved he is by this crew, by Luffy in particular. Because yes, Sanji's been there with Nami, with Usopp, with Robin. He's seen how Luffy recruits others, he sees how Luffy treats others, and he sees how Luffy goes after his friends with everything he has. And yet when it comes to himself, there's such a self-hatred and just undertone of unworthiness in Sanji's character that he's like, well, it won't be for me. It won't be like that for me. I have done this, and because I will do this, I will no longer have a place. He's just got these blinders when it comes to how they treat him, or how he thinks that they perceive them. And I love that it gets proven wrong right here in this moment. He lists his other reasons about wanting to protect Zeph. And then his third reason is that he wants to protect his family. He wants to save his family. He wants to save the people that abused him so much. But because Sanji is far kinder and more soft-hearted than anyone will ever give him credit for, he cannot in good conscience leave them to die, especially when he knows that they will die. And he lays those out as his 3 reasons why he cannot go back to Luffy, and Luffy hits him. He just slaps Sanji. And Sanji, when he hits the floor and Sanji looks up, I love Luffy for this, because he says, tell me how you really feel. Tell me the truth. Tell me what you actually want. Because Luffy still, at this moment, can see through Sanji's facade. He can see through to what Sanji really wants, but just as Luffy always has, he wants to hear it from them. He doesn't want to just be, oh, this is what I know you're feeling this way, so I'm gonna do this. No, he's going to sit here and wait for you to say it before he acts. He did this, he's done this, he's done this the entire time. He did it for Robin. And this is Sanji's I want to live moment. It really is. Because as soon as Luffy says, I want you to tell me how you really feel. Tell me what you actually feel inside. Don't try to play this game with me. And Sanji breaks down and cries. And he's thinking of all of his adventures that he's had on the Sunny. He's thinking of everything that they've went through. And then he's comparing that to how he gets treated by his family, and then even how he's been played by Big Mom. And he says, Luffy, and the fact that The fact that Sanji's complete honesty and the raw emotions that he hasn't allowed himself to display in front of people. There's been a few times like, oh yes, the Straw Hats are crying over things that have happened, but like this is an actual, like there's a difference. I know I'm not saying this right, but there's a difference between that and then Sanji truly breaking down, allowing himself to let his guard down, to let that facade drop, to say what he really wants, what he really wishes, in front of the man that he had just hurt, in front of a man that he still loves and respects, and wants to travel with, wants to be together with the rest of his crew, who has never got to see this side of Sanji. I know on the Baradier, Sanji broke down and cried when he said goodbye to Zeb, but this is still on a completely different level than that. And Luffy, you can tell by the shock on his face, you can tell that he recognizes that. And Sanji breaks down and he says, I want to go back to the Sunny. He might as well have just said, I want to go back home. That's what he might as well have said, because that's exactly what he means. It's just the same as Robin saying, I want to live, take me to the sea with you. After hearing Sanji say that, after hearing Sanji say he doesn't have the guts to run away because he's so scared of anybody else getting hurt because of him, including his own family. After seeing this, after seeing Sanji break down, Luffy immediately smiles and says, of course. He hears Sanji's confliction that he still wants to save the family that hurt him for so long, and he says, well, of course you do, because that's who you are. Because Luffy knows exactly how Sanji is, and he's now seen the full brunt of how selfless Sanji is. And he says, I got you. He says, you've got us. You have us. We're gonna crash the wedding. And of course, as soon as Luffy says this, the rain stops. The rain starts letting up, and it stops raining. That is beautiful writing. I really thought I was gonna be fine for this one, but apparently not. Here we are. But then they contact, Luffy and Sanji get contacted by Nami and Chopper through the mirror. They find the mirror and contact them. Luffy starts filling them in on what's going on. I love this because so much has been explained about Sanji's character, so I know this for a fact. I like how they put this in here. I like how Oda did this. When they're talking about crashing the wedding and then Sanji coming back, and then there's dead silence, and then Sanji's like, well, no, okay, Luffy, she's an emperor. And then he says, I don't want my selfishness. Boy. Okay. I don't want my selfishness to expose them, or to expose Nami to danger. He tries so hard to pretend he doesn't care about everyone. Everyone. It's not just women, because he cares for his entire freaking family, who, I mean, Reiju, yes, is nice, and he's always wanted to save her, but all three of his brothers and his dad, they're in that family that he wants to save too, and he cares about all of his crew, and yet he tries to pretend he doesn't. He's like, oh, just Nami. No, Sanji, we got you figured out, baby. I got you figured out. You need to stop pretending you don't care about everybody. You're the most caring person. It's just such a small line, such a small moment, but it holds so much impact. And then we get this interaction with Sanji and Nami, where she says, after the way you cast me into the depths of terror, which that's That's actually pretty big words coming from Nami. There's a lot to unpack there, but I'm not going to. But then she says, "I'll never forgive you," which hurts Sanji immensely. I think they'll sort it out. I think Nami will be fine with Sanji by the end of this arc. I can already see little parts of it where it looks like they will be, but it might just be heat of the moment stuff and she'll treat him differently after everything dies down. I don't know. But this might be her way of getting Sanji to apologize to her and to Luffy, because she knows how much she means to Sanji. But as they're all talking, Jinbei informs them that Capone is actually going to be the one that tries to kill Big Mom at this wedding. He's going to use all of this as his own, like, pretty much cover so that he can kill Big Mom. But instead of fighting against Capone, even though he had shot Peckham's and Peckham's is now in recovery, Jinbei saved him, it's fine. Jinbei's like, no, how about y'all team up with him instead? I love the look Luffy gives at first as Jinbei's trying to explain it, like he's trying to figure out what Jinbei's talking about. And then Luffy agrees to team up with Capone, or at least hear him out, to form a potential alliance. At this point, Luffy's just collecting worst generation members like it's a game. It's kind of funny. And as they're going to meet Capone, we get this interaction with Nami and Chiffon, this twin sister of Lola. Nami gets to fill Chiffon in of everything that happened with Lola, and Chiffon is actually so grateful that Nami was able to help Lola that she helped her escape and given her that update on her sister. And we get more of Chiffon's history of how Big Mom just absolutely hates her because she has the same face as Lola, so she's basically been banished from Big Mom's sight. And Big Mom absolutely hates her, and Chiffon is just like, I don't really feel bad if she dies. And amidst all this wholesomeness, you know, all the talking and everybody's cleaning up, we get the power of milk, which apparently can just immediately fix broken bones, which is so funny. And I love how they call it out. They're like, is that how bodies work? How do your bodies work? I love that shot of Brook and Luffy just drinking milk, and then automatically Luffy's broken tooth is back, Brook's crack is healed, everybody's good. It's hilarious. But then we get to meet with Capone, and we find Caesar there, who is trying to pretend he's somebody else, but it doesn't work at all. But before they can talk about an alliance, Luffy's like, well, I get a one punch on you for shooting Peckham's. That's, you know, first and foremost priority. I get to punch you. And Capone lets him. He's like, no, let him have the hit. And as they're all fighting, Jinbei's the one to be like, okay, Luffy, do you like Big Mom? Luffy's like, no, I don't. He's like, okay, y'all are allies. So the three of them sit down, or I say three. Luffy, Capone, and Caesar, while they're all arguing, they sit down. Capone's got a plan, and as they describe all the plan, how he's gonna take Big Mom down, how he's gonna weaken her through the picture that she treasures of Mother Carmel, and how everybody's gonna have a different role in this. And Luffy gets the role of being a distraction to break the picture from Big Mom, and Luffy automatically just loves the idea and says, oh, I'm gonna make a great entrance. And as soon as I said that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be so chaotic. And it was, in the best possible way. So their plan is to attack Big Mom and simultaneously save Sanji's family and then get out of there. And we do get Jinbei's explanation of his betrayal, why he chose to do betrayal instead of leaving, and he explained that the wheel kind of gave him a bad feeling that he would end up having to sacrifice much more than his own life, and he couldn't do that because he wasn't going to allow others to be dragged down with him. So he was like, I tried to do the honorable thing, it didn't work, betrayal's the next way to go, so let's do this. I think it's great. And then we get Katakuri's introduction, which he looks so cool, by the way. His introduction, so cool. He has mochi fruit powers, which is so similar to Luffy's. Very interesting. He looks really cool. I actually kind of like him as a character. The wedding cake is brought out. Big Mom is celebrating because look at all this food that they get to enjoy after the ceremony. And I love it as the wedding starts, Capone just thinks Sanji is the best actor in the world because Sanji knows that Pudding's tricking her, but he still loves women. And so he's like, oh my gosh, she's still so cute. But then he puts on this face and he's like, okay, don't let yourself fall into it. We're just gonna pretend. It's like he's halfway pretending, halfway not. It's actually really funny. Which is really what I needed. I really needed a little bit of silliness from Sanji because it's been too much lately. So yes, we get that. Jinbei's not able to wake Luffy up, so they're off to fetch some meat to wake Luffy up because he's about to miss his cue. Sanji and Pudding are about to get married when Pudding reveals her third eye, expecting Sanji to be put out by it or shocked or anything. Sanji compliments her. Says it is a beautiful eye, and it just completely takes Pudding out. She collapses into tears and is unable to do anything because everybody has hated her third eye her entire life, thought it was grotesque, and she was shunned for it. Nobody's ever complimented her, and then here she is about to kill this man, and then he says her eye is really pretty, and she just drops. And she's so mad but touched at the same time. She's like, I'm gonna kill you, but she's crying and saying that she's a hideous three-eyed monster, but at the same time it's like, he complimented me. Really do think Pudding's got like split personalities or something, like something with the third eye really messes with her mentality because she switches so fast in this arc. It's giving me whiplash, but it's also it's a little funny, and I'm mad that it's funny because I don't want to like her. I don't want to like her. And things start to fall into chaos as Luffy breaks through the wedding cake. And it's not just one Luffy. He convinced Brule to make hundreds of him, so he just has so many Luffys busting through the wedding cake. Big Mom is automatically just upset about the whole thing, in shambles. But it just keeps going from there. It's just so chaotic. The moment Pudding falls to her knees, it just like everything falls into chaos. I love how Capone's like, oh well, there's so many of them. Big Mom called out which one is Straw Hat Luffy, and he's like, oh, there's so many of them, she'll never find him. And Luffy comes in and is like, it's me! Because Capone doesn't know Luffy. He doesn't know what Luffy's like. It's the same way that Law reacted as soon as he got to see some of Luffy's antics, and I really like it. It's very funny. But before Luffy can reach the picture frame, Katakuri knocks him out, or knocks him down. But then Jinbei goes to confront Big Mom, taking all the blame on himself, so he hides Capone's betrayal for a little bit. And then when she's trying to intimidate him and saying, life or stay or life, he stands in front of her, not a single bit intimidated, and says life. And Big Mom can't steal his soul because he's not afraid of her. And then I love what he says. He looks Big Mom right in the eye and he says, a man who would be crewmate of the future king of the pirates cannot afford to tremble in the presence of a mere emperor. Oh my gosh, what an awesome moment. I love that moment for Jinbei. That is so good. Oh, I love that. And of course, Luffy's happy to hear that because he's like, we got Jinbei now. He's finally coming. I love that because it shocks Big Mom. It shocks everybody around him. And Luffy's just like, that's my boy. That's my new crew member. You see that? He's mine. Oh, I love it. Jinbei is coming clutch too in this arc. It's been really great. All of the Straw Hats are really getting a time to shine, and I love it. And then Brook, disguised as Luffy, goes over to Mother Caramel's picture and breaks it. And then we get this confrontation with Pudding and Sanji where she's trying to shoot him, Sanji's dodging, and she's questioning him about the third eye, saying that she's fooled everybody all of her life because of it. Sanji hits her with the most like philosophical question that Pudding could have ever thought of at the moment. And he says, even yourself, Pudding. And it shocks her enough that she again cannot fight. Sanji saves Pudding from being hit with like an explosion. And then he's off to go to Germa because they end up getting stuck in this candy and they cannot move and they have all these guns pointed at their heads. And this is, I will say, I want to make this distinction now so that later I can bring up my point without having to go back. In the face of death with the guns pointed at their heads and they're just sitting there waiting to die because they don't have their suits, they don't have any way to fight back, they're stuck and they're trapped. All three of the sons, all three brothers, are just sitting there kind of laughing, making jokes, and being like, oh man, this sucks, we're gonna die, ha ha ha. And Reiju's the one over here having emotions and trying to like figure out what is gonna happen, trying to make peace with the situation. And then we get Judge crying like a little baby, which was really funny. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed it much more than I should have, but it was great. I really liked that part. We get Judge over here crying about being betrayed by Big Mom, about being trapped and about to die, and the whole of Germa's legacy about to fall apart. I love that kind of picture right there because as much as he didn't want emotions in his children, here he is showing all this emotion, wondering why his kids are not. As they're about to shoot the Vinsmokes, Sanji is trying to run to Reiju first. And she looks at Sanji, and I love how she says this. She says, I suppose I overlooked your kind nature. Now you won't even run for safety and leave us behind. I've lived with my shame and hatred of the Vinsmoke name, but now that I've seen you all grow up, I feel like my heart has been redeemed at last. There is still a conscience to be found in our bloodline. Thank you, Sanji. I really do like Reiju as a character. I really do love her. She's such a cool character. Big Mom finally coming out of her little stupor and she lets out that scream. Chopper puts the plugs that they had talked about, puts them in Reiju's ears so she could keep her wits about her. And Sanji comes in, breaks all of the little candy on the table that the Vinsmokes were out, and frees all the Vinsmokes, standing over his father. But then we get Big Mom's story, Big Mom's flashback, which is wild. She has always been very large, like very, very tall, very big. She was left by her parents at an orphanage at the age of 5 because they could not keep her. And she was abandoned, took in by Mother Carmel, who was not a very nice person. Not only that, she was at Elbaf. You know, Elbaf, this place for giants that we have been hearing about since Little Garden, that Usopp and Luffy are wanting to go visit, and we've seen so many giants throughout the story, and now we're finally getting like a glimpse at Elbaf, and it's through Big Mom's story. But she herself isn't a giant, it seems, because it said that she was fully human. So what's going on with her? But we're in Elbaf with all these other giants, and there's a problem with Lin Lin, is that she is, in every sense of the word, a glutton. Just uncontrollable hunger and impulses when it comes to food. She has such enormous strength that she doesn't know how to control, and she thinks situations are one way, but it's twisted and it should be a different way. Like how she kills the bear and the wolf after, or she kills the bear for eating the wolf, or when they're in the cage, and she is trying to break the limb off of someone because they have an extra joint, but oh well, they were born that way, they're supposed to be it, but she wants everybody to be the same, so she's like, oh well, I'll just break off his joints, and Mother Carmel's like, no, you really shouldn't. But yes, the problem with Lin Lin is that she cannot control herself when it comes to food. It's like she goes into like this daze, this hypnotic state where she can't even remember what happens. I think it's before the fast they have these sweets and she just goes like absolutely wild for them, and then they're trying to fast and she just loses her mind and destroys half of Elbaf and takes down some of the giants along with her when she's still a child. Like it's nothing. And she doesn't remember anything that happens when she does this. Oh, one of the giants ends up calling her a god of disaster. That she is just a natural born disaster. And the only way to temper her is by giving her the food that she's craving, which still lasts to the present time. So they get kicked out of Elbaf. The Giants don't like Linlin, which is obviously a very big connection to why there's no Giants on Whole Cake Island. Also, with the whole situation of Lola not marrying Prince Loki from Elbaf and that whole thing falling through, did not turn out well. And then we figure out that Mother Caramel is a orphan seller for either CP9 or Cypherpole or Celestial Dragons or anybody in the world government, everything. She is an orphan seller. That's why she collects all these children to sell them off. And she's like, no, I've got a real good one here. You're just going to need to wait a little bit longer. But that little bit longer never comes because on Big Mom's birthday, they throw her a huge feast and she ends up eating everyone. They didn't just randomly disappear while she was eating her treats for her birthday, like with all the screams in the background as she's eating. She ate everybody. And just thinks they disappeared on her because she somehow didn't hear their screaming or feel the crunching of their bones under her teeth while she was eating. So she thinks she got abandoned. And there was two different reactions to this. You have the Giants who saw this and were absolutely disgusted and hated her, and it became like forbidden to even say her name in Elbaf. And then you have this other person who saw this, was disgusted, but also like, I'm gonna take advantage of this, and did that, and he still works with Big Mom. She has a wild backstory. It wasn't what I was expecting at all from Big Mom. So we get back out of Big Mom's flashback and her backstory, and our group's all trying to escape, but the mirror breaks that Caesar was holding as their way to escape. The mirror shatters, leaving them stranded, and they all have to try to find a new way to get out of there. And Capone ends up having like this defensive like castle that he brings everybody into to protect them. And then we get Sanji looking down at the vent smokes, and then he gives them all their raid suits. Doesn't say anything to them, just gives them the raid suits and just like motions for them to go. And all of Jerba have their little like transformation sequences, which I really want to watch in the anime, just to see how it looks. And I hate to say it, but their stances, their pose looks cool. It's annoying. I still don't like them. But their pose was cool. Power Rangers pose. But yeah, so they're all fighting back. They're all trying to get to the castle that Capone made. Nami ends up, I don't know how it happens, but Nami ends up getting thrown by something, and Sanji catches her. This is the moment where I said, like, they might be mending their own relationship, like, even though Nami says she would never forgive him. This kind of hints that maybe, at least there's some possibility of things being normal between them again. This is a very sweet moment. Sanji catching Nami and then smiling at her, and she smiles at him. And I think Pudding saw that and saw his reaction to that. And I think that helped change, like, cement her decision towards the end of this arc. And everybody's inside Capone at this point in that castle. They're trying to figure things out. All of the vent smokes figure out that Sanji saved them, that he wanted to save them. I'm gonna have to make my own separate video about Sanji and the vent smokes and just everything, because there's way too much to talk about here. But they're trying to figure out what to do when Capone wants to continue fighting because he doesn't want to leave his own crew out there or his wife and child. He doesn't want them to get hurt. But they need Caesar's help to let them all escape. But Caesar needs somebody to guard them. And then we get the best scenes of closure for Sanji. Is he stands up to Judge. When Judge goes up to him and says, I just have one question. Why did you save us? And I love Sanji's answer. He says, because my father would be sad if I were still fixated on the childhood hatred from my past. He would be astonished that I had turned into such a small man that I would laugh off the death of my own family. And he wants to lead a life where he can stand tall, and look him proudly in the he had claimed Zeph as his father before this, and we've seen it all through the whole Cake Island, how Sanji sees Zeph as his real father. But this moment, saying it in this way to Judge, and then telling him that yes, Vinsmoke Sanji did die 13 years ago. So now I want you to say it. And it's the complete inverse of the situation when Sanji was leaving as a child and Judge was telling him that he could never tell anybody that they were related, that he could never tell anybody that he was his dad. And now, 13 years later, Sanji is here, grabbing Judge by the scruff and pulling him down. And he says, "You are not my father, Vinsmoke Judge. So don't ever show your face around me again." Just that sent such like that part sent so many chills down my body. It's just like the power that had for Sanji, the closure that he felt being able to say that, not just as a in-your-face type thing, but as something he truly meant, that came from the heart, because he does have a dad that he sees as family, and the people before him, his birth dad, his dad, is not his dad. And for him to go through all of that trauma and then 13 years to finally get closure on said trauma, to turn it around and say, "I don't want you as my dad." This person that he has been trying so hard to get approval of when he was a kid, who was ashamed of him, who disowned him pretty much, and would have left him to die. This person, someone that left such a horrible, horrible mark on Sanji. Now Sanji can look in the eyes and just say, "You are not my dad. You have no control over me. You have no sway over me. So leave me alone." I mean, that's a special type of closure for Sanji. That is a special type of closure for Sanji. Being able to say that not just in front of Judge, not saying that just to Judge, but in front of his crew, in front of Luffy, in front of all of them, and in front of his brothers. His brothers who had tortured and abused him as well. Hearing him say that to Judge in front of all of these people had such a huge impact for Sanji. And you can see, as he's saying this, Luffy is paying close attention. Luffy is listening to every single word Sanji is saying and knowing the impact that it has, knowing the depth of what he is saying, what it means. And Reiju listening to this and then smiling after she hears Sanji say this. I love that. I love this moment. I love that Sanji actually gets a form of closure. Not by becoming the cruel or heartless people that his family is, by letting them go die, by leaving them to die. He gets closure by saving their lives. Because he knows that's what the proper thing to do is. He knows that he would disappoint his dad if he didn't do that. And it would go against who he is as a person if he didn't do that. And then he gets his closure by not only by saving them, by saying, "You have no control over me. You are not my family." Because his family is right behind him. And Sanji's words must have sunk in with Judge and hit him hard, because he walks away without a word and then just says that he will defend Capone and everybody to give them protection as they're all trying to escape. That Germa will protect them. And Luffy, of course, is like, "Okay, let's go." And Sanji stops him. He's like, "No. It is their means of making amends. Now it is their time, their turn to go put their lives on the line." for Sanji. Listen. I have a lot of thoughts on the Vince Smokes and Sanji. But then they're all going, Reiju gets hit, and Luffy and Sanji come out anyways to help. They start attacking. And I love how they're bickering with each other as they're trying to attack and protect Reiju. And Luffy's like, wait, you said we shouldn't fight. And Sanji's just like, yeah, you shouldn't, but I can. But then we get this secret CP Aegis person, Stussy, which is a very weird name, who wants the Tamate box, but it falls and ends up blowing up. Before we get that, we get Luffy declaring war on Big Mom yet again, saying like, no, King of the Pirates is not going to be you, it's going to be me. Hitting Big Mom before he's pulled away. As they're all escaping, Judge gets hit by one of the moves Big Mom throws. It's Thunderbolt, Pokemon move. He gets hit by Thunderbolt, and this is the part that makes me feel a little conflicted about the Vince Smokes and their whole dynamic of being emotionless, because as soon as Judge gets hit and he goes down, Reiju, of course, because she keeps her emotions, Reiju's worried for him, but then all of the sons turn around and they yell out, Dad, and then rush to his side, leaving Caesar defenseless, which gets him caught. But for people who are supposed to be completely emotionless, who are supposed to just be these weapons of war, sure is interesting that as soon as their dad gets in trouble, because their dad has always treated them fine, to an extent, I guess. They've been favored by their dad their whole life. So as soon as their dad gets hurt, they become worried for him. I'm sorry, but worry is an emotion. They rush to his side to help him. And with Reiju saying earlier that there is a conscience left in the bloodline, and knowing what Sanji's mom did with drinking that poison to keep the emotions and how it worked on Sanji, but it apparently didn't work on the other kids. What if it worked? They have this smidgen of humanity and emotions left that have been locked away for so long because they've been taught and trained and drilled not to care, not to have emotions. When faced with their own impending doom, they sat there and laughed with each other. But the moment they see their dad get hurt, they rush to his side to help. This is what I was saying at the very beginning. I'm so mad that Oda is making these more complex than I thought they were, because I don't want to like them. I don't want to like the Vince Smokes, because if they have emotions, this is a side note, but if they still have some emotions in them, that means there's a chance that they knew what they were doing to Sanji. They knew what they were doing to him, what it meant, what it did to him. Not only that, but as we see with Judge and his way of making amends, if there's even an ounce of remorse in them, still doesn't make it okay, still doesn't mean I like them, but it makes it a whole lot more complicated. But on that same token, if Sanji's mom had drank that and it worked almost completely on Sanji, but a little bit was spread out to the other three, what if on the reverse of that, the Germa stuff worked completely on them, but a little bit trickled out to Sanji? Maybe that's why his legs are so strong. We never really get an explanation for that. I mean, it shows that the Vince Smoke family is not one-dimensional. We knew Reiju wasn't. I mean, yeah, their emotions were there the entire time if you really want to look at it, because of the way they were, like, looking at Nami and everything. Like, lust is still an emotion, and they were feeling that for these women when they were seeing them. So, I mean, there's still something left inside of them, and I don't know. I don't like how Oda made them a lot more complicated than what I would have liked. I would have much preferred them to stay simple and very easy to hate. They're still easy to hate, but now it's just like it's more complicated and it makes me mad. But yes, they rush up to go to Judge to help him, and Caesar gets caught by Katakuri. But then that's when the Tamate box blows up and the whole chateau falls and it collapses. And then from there on, it's just wedding cake. Big Mom is in a rampage for her wedding cake. Thinks the Straw Hats have it, so she's off to just chase them to the ends of the earth for cake. Pretty much the rest of what I've read is just them running from Big Mom. Everybody's running from Big Mom. You get Nami distracting Zeus with the little thunderballs, and like he's eating them and enjoying them, so he distracts Big Mom from attacking them with these like massively effective attacks. And then you get Nami wanting Zeus to be her servant. Ends up feeding Zeus a weather ball that makes him like grow like immensely in size, and Nami uses Zeus to strike Big Mom down, which is like a massive attack that hits Big Mom. And like but the whole time they're trying to run, and even like as Nami is trying to set up this attack, Sanji grabs her and like forces her to go because she was gonna stop to get this. So as he's carrying her, Nami is still sending out this attack and just sucker punches Big Mom with this attack pretty much. Sends her down. They all think attack that big would destroy everyone, and they narrowly miss. They narrowly escape. And while that's happening, you have Pudding going to Chiffon saying that she wants to save Sanji before Big Mom kills Sanji and all of his friends. And she wants Chiffon's help to make a new wedding cake because, again, a wedding cake is the only thing that's going to stop Big Mom. And then you have Brook and Chopper defending the Sunny because some of Big Mom's generals and everything, they're on the Sunny, like Katakuri and the Katie guy. They're on the Sunny, and they're like, oh, well, you can surrender if you want. I love how Brook and Chopper just kind of look at each other and be like, no thanks. But they're defending the Sunny. They actually end up getting encased in candy and unable to move. And Chiffon is doing this because she wants to save the Straw Hats, particularly Nami, for all of the help that she gave to Lola. So she's already like on board to help us. And I really love Chiffon. She's actually a really, really cool side character I was not expecting to like that much. I do really like Pudding's got some like split personality or something's going on with Pudding, because she's one moment she's like happy to see Sanji and like worried for him, and the next she's like making these evil faces and making fun of Sanji or like looking down on him, and then she's like, oh no, that's not right. So there's definitely something going on. I think it's got to be something with her third eye that's messing with her. Pudding wants Sanji's help because Sanji is a cook. She wants his help to make the cake for Big Mom so that they can all escape. So Sanji agrees, tells Luffy that they'll rendezvous at sea, and Sanji goes off with Pudding and Chiffon to the Chocolate Island so that they can make a cake. And then, yeah, there's definitely something up with Pudding because like after they're on the carpet and they're like flying towards the chocolate place, like she turns around and sees Sanji and she's like, Sanji, what are you doing here? He's like, I've been here this whole time. And I'm just so excited to see Sanji cook. Like the fact that he's like, all right, let's go. We're gonna make a wedding cake that'll, what does he say? He says, let's whip up a cake so good it'll knock Big Mom's lights out. This really is right up Sanji's alley. I wasn't really expecting the arc to go in this direction, but we're going to possibly escape by pacifying Big Mom with a cake. After what I've seen so far, that's very plausible. So they get back to the Sunny. You get Pedro recognizing that they are not in a good spot. And he looks at Carrot and he says, I have a suspicion that Luffy and his friends are those whom our people and the Kozuki clan have waited for centuries. The ones who will guide us to the dawn of the world. There's so much to unpack there related to the Void Century, related to the ancient weapons, of how the whole waiting for someone to lead them, and the whole Zunisha, Poseidon, and all of them, the freaking Joy Boy and all of that. And Pedro says, they're the ones we've been waiting for. And because of that, because he fully believes that Luffy and his crew are the ones that they've been waiting for, he decides to sacrifice himself to give them a chance to keep moving forward. Because all along he was convinced that it would be his final voyage, and he made it his final voyage. Sacrifices himself at sea to give them a chance to escape. I didn't know Pedro long, but that hurt. That was painful. And then on top of that, we get this line with like his whole like the pirates that he named, the Nox pirates, and he says Nox is synonymous with the moment before the dawn, saying that Luffy will and his crew will guide them to the dawn of the world, the dawn of the new world, and Nox being the moment before the dawn as his final stand. The moment before this happens, he would give himself for them to make sure that they can get to the dawn. Kidding me? Wow. And Luffy, very upset and angry at his sacrifice, but he is so determined not to let it go to waste that he tells everybody to keep going, to keep moving. And he's fending off Katakuri saying, I'm the captain of this ship. You're not, we're going to leave this place. And he calls out to everybody because Katakuri, I didn't mention this before, he has observation haki so refined and so in tune that he can see into the future, which is wild. So many other people could be doing that too, and we just don't even know it yet. Yes, he can see into the future with his observation haki, and that's what is giving them such a hard time with Katakuri at that and other things. And I love as soon as Luffy is making his move, he's like, oh, that's a good move. That would prevent me from keeping you here. And Luffy's like, you can see it, but you can't stop me. Such a cool line from Luffy. Luffy, grabbing Katakuri, says to everybody else that he will be back, and drags himself and Katakuri into the mirror world, trapping himself there, and he breaks the mirror, breaks off his way back to his ship, back to his crew. And it is now time for him to face off against Katakuri. And as they're fleeing, they're trying to get a grip on their emotions because of what happened to Pedro. And I love Jinbei's speech about moving forward. He says, my point is that we cannot let our guard down now. That shoreline was a place of certain death. He knew what it represented and was determined to sacrifice himself whenever necessary. And with his act, Pedro achieved victory. I love this part. He says, how great of a loss has the enemy suffered because of your arrival here? This is an unprecedented setback for them. Don't you hear Pedro's voice in your ears? Onward. Luffy understood the stakes instantly, and that is why he took on that foe by himself. And he's saying, so until we can escape Big Mom's territory, we must not let our guard down. Don't you hear Pedro saying that? That is the perfect speech. Powerful speech, but the perfect speech to say in that moment. That's exactly what they needed to hear. And it gets everybody back to thinking. It gets everybody in their right mind, and they're on their way. They're escaping from Big Mom the best they can. And Big Mom is chasing after them on the water on a little sea slug, candy sea slug. And we get Sanji, Pudding, and Chiffon getting to where they needed to be. Sanji hiding until they get inside, and then Pudding rearranging everybody's memories to make them think that they were already married and that they were just here to make a new cake for Big Mom, so that they wouldn't have any trouble with any of the cooking or anything. And Sanji, being the absolute best cook and chef ever, was able to just look at the wedding cake that Big Mom had and know every single ingredient down because of like the smell it gave off, the scent. He knew everything about that cake, reconstructed it perfectly with the list of ingredients. And Sanji, this is his first time seeing this cake, and he's able to say exactly everything that went in there. That's more than impressive. That's amazing. Pudding is wild. Ever since this whole third eye back and forth started, she's just been getting crazier and crazier with how she is interacting with Sanji, and how Sanji doesn't really respond too much. Like, he has like small little moments where he's like, oh, she looks really cute, but other than that, he doesn't have like big responses to her, and she's just like going absolutely crazy over it. And now they begin their cooking. They're making their cake so that they can get it to Big Mom so that she stops chasing everybody. Luffy not faring well against Katakuri. Katakuri is of a very similar type of fighter that Luffy is. Like, he copied Luffy's elephant gun, except his was a lot bigger. They're very evenly matched, but because of Katakuri's observation haki, that puts him like a step above Luffy, and it makes it very hard for Luffy to combat him. Plus, Katakuri is still trying to send people to the Sunny through other mirrors on the ship. Luffy is telling the crew to destroy every mirror on that ship, therefore isolating himself into the mirror world, but also to protect them. But then this tidal wave comes up that Big Mom is riding. They're not going to be able to escape it, but Jinbei, the mad lad himself, grabs the sail with one hand and steers them to the tidal wave into the green room to hide them and keep them safe during this entire tidal wave. And I love it. I know who he's gonna be in the crew. He said it himself. But I mean, Jinbei had complimented Nami as a navigator. He said with a helmsman, this will be like the perfect ship or something like that. We'll be able to get through anything. Jinbei's gonna be the helmsman. He's gonna be the helmsman, isn't he? After they escape the tidal wave, Nami is going around smashing every single mirror, just as Luffy had said. And when the others question her about this, I love this because of everything that's happened in this arc. I love this moment for Nami when she turns around to face them, despite her worry about Luffy, despite her being very scared for him because she heard him say that he needed to focus on Katakuri. She breaks the mirrors, looks at the rest of the crew, and says, "That's a captain's order." Ooh. I love that moment for Nami. And Luffy smashes the little bit of mirror that he has, I think with his teeth. He like shoves it in his mouth and like breaks it as Katakuri is attacking him. Smashes it to pieces, facing Katakuri, and he says, "I don't intend to die here." And that is where I left off. Left off with Luffy going off against Katakuri. Our crew is still running from Big Mom. Sanji and the others are making cake, and Capone is somewhere else with maybe Caesar. And we haven't seen the Vinsmoke since the chateau fell. Oh, this arc is not... I mean, it's going a little bit in how I expected with Sanji coming back. I was not expecting this whole like twist with the whole Big Mom thing and all of that. But that's where we're at. Whole Cake Island has been really, really good so far. I'm looking forward to the ending because the ending is going to determine where this falls for me in terms of my favorite arcs. The ending of this is going to determine where that falls. A little apprehensive, but I'm excited. I don't want to keep crying after this. I'm so tired of crying in this arc. I've cried too much. I need a break after this, okay? A break where we get a nice little happy arc where I can just be excited and happy with my crew. But I know Oda, it's not gonna happen. It's fine. It's not gonna happen. It's cool. It's fine. We're good. But that's all for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you haven't, make sure you go watch that read with me that I posted on Tuesday. If you haven't seen my Harry Potter readathon videos, the first 4 books are up on my channel in one video, and then the next 3 will be next Tuesday. I'll be finishing out the Harry Potter series, so be sure to go check those videos out if you want to go see them. And then next week I will be finishing up Whole Cake Island, so we'll see how this whole thing ends. But thank you all so much for watching this video, and I will see you next time, scholars. Bye!